Welcome, everyone. We are excited to kick off another vendor spotlight for this year's MSPGeekCon 2023. What is a vendor spotlight? It is where we allow select vendors the opportunity to formally introduce themselves to the MSP Geek community. We'll spend time learning more about them, in their history, how they were brought into the channel, as well as drop some knowledge on us on how we could continue to evolve as a community. Better yet, guys, we'll have a brief Q&A to dive deeper and see how we can work together to be better for our MSPs and ourselves as engineers and technical professionals. Not familiar with MSPGeekCon? If you've been living under a rock, a pineapple, or your uncle's war prep bunker, MSPGeekCon is the first convention to cater to you, the technical professional, as an IT services firm. This is a conference that was created for you by the community, and I am honored to have been asked to interview our guest today. My name is Christensen, and I've been an MSP Geek member since the early days and also the founder of some well-known vendors in the space. I now spend my time mentoring and training MSP owners and operators to remove the complex barriers that prevent us from growing as organizations and individuals. Over the last 20 years, I have developed the necessary skills to ensure us technical professionals grow with the companies we support. But, while I will be speaking at MSP GeekCon, I'm not cool as our guest. And I want you to picture this. You're a student studying all types of computer development, loving all the languages that are out there, and you're eager to learn as much as possible about the world of technology. You may be wondering what your future holds, what kind of problems you'll be solving, and what kind of impact you'll make on the industry. Well, let me introduce you to Jeremy Oakes, the founder of Automation Theory. Jeremy was just like you once, a student with a passion of technology and an insatiable curiosity for problem solving. He went to school for development and landed his first job at a large MSP. Just like us, right? And as he worked his way up the ranks, he became the RM administrator at an MSP responsible for monitoring and maintaining the remote management and monitoring systems used. It was during that time that Jeremy began to notice a pattern. The problem the MSP was having with stability and security in their RMM footprint were common to many MSPs. This is how he stumbled into the MSP Geek community to see how all of the rest of us were facing these problems. Jeremy then realized that there was an opportunity to create a solution that could help MSPs across the board, and thus, Automation Theory was born. He set out to create the tools that could automate common problems for MSPs, allowing them to focus on providing better service and a security footprint for their client. And you know what? One thing I don't want to forget is that his love for Star Trek. As a fellow fan, I'm sure you can appreciate the way that science fiction can inspire and drive innovation. When you combine that with a deep understanding of technology, you get someone like Jeremy, a visionary who's always been looking to push the boundaries of what's possible. Jeremy, welcome.
Thank you.
I appreciate you hopping on, brother.
Yeah. It's great to talk with you too.
Hey, man. So tell us about Automation Theory. Tell us about you. What's cool? What's kicking? What's new? What's different? What you guys up to?
Yeah. So Automation Theory, we're a niche consulting firm based out of Wisconsin. And our mission is to secure and optimize the MSP tool stack. And, we daydream about a world where MSPs don't have to face ransomware attacks and your internal tools just work.
Man, so, go a little bit deeper on that, because I know us as professionals, us in the community, right? We like show us what's under the hood a little bit. So what do you mean by expanding that security footprint? What do you guys mean about simplifying some of these tools?
Yeah. So there are two sides to the Automation Theory shop. The first is what we'd call body armor for MSPs, and that's in the form of our proxy and WAF service. We have a drop-in solution to protect MSP tools from things like the Kaseya VSA type attacks. And protecting an application is a lot different than protecting IT infrastructure, and that's why we designed a service for it. And we do that in a way where it is kind of drop-in turnkey, but we can custom tune it for each MSP and, meet the unique challenges and requirements. Everyone uses these tools differently, and we can build something that's tailor fit and create a solution that's effective and, in a weird sort of way, beautiful.
That's pretty neat, man. It's funny because we all go back and forth with, how we're protecting our client stack sometimes. And we forget that at times, right, we need to put our own defenses up. And in the moment, I can tell you right now, having operated an MSP, sometimes you don't really think about the security stack of your own software, especially when they're cloud-based, right? When they're SaaS-based. Mm-hmm. it's a lot easier to just assume that your upstream provider has done the wherewithal to make sure that their systems are protected. And sometimes we just take for granted and go, oh, they're SOC 2 compliant.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
How did you stumble on that?
Well, so there's a lot of people in the industry who have had experience with this with other applications, but back in the day before automation theory, I was the RMM administrator for a large MSP in northern Minnesota. I had about 10,000 remote agents in my Automate stack, and we were, as an MSP, gearing up for SOC 2 compliance. And I was also, on the internal security team for that, along with the RMM hat. And so we were talking about, various attacks and walking through a risk register. And one of the things that, you'd see stories about MSPs just having, people break into their tools through bad credentials, things like that. The industry guidance for years has been, patch your application and turn on MFA, and that's all MSPs need to do. But as soon as you start to see that, oh, hey, some of these more advanced attacks, they actually attacked the application itself. They were able to inject something. They were able to exploit some bad code and all of a sudden manipulate the application, even if it was patched, even if you did have MFA, even if you did check all your other responsible security boxes. That's really where the wheels started to turn. And so there was a solution that was implemented by that MSP. And I realized, being out in the MSP Geek community, that nobody else had something like this. And the automation theory proxy service really came about after there was a vulnerability in Automate. Perch named it Enraged Duck, I believe. And I might have my history flipped around there, but there was the ability to go ahead and through the agent installer, grab the server password and then string together some vulnerabilities. And people in the community were, saying, hey, go check your logs. There was this IP over in Russia or China that was scraping Automate servers. And I realized that, the rest of the community and everybody else who has this software it'd be worthwhile for them to have a solution. And having, implemented kind of a duct tape and baling wire at that MSP, I realized that there was definitely some complexity to doing that, and the ability to roll your own solution had some limits there.
Dang, man. And it was funny because when we were talking before we, hopped into the show, right, I was looking at your resume and I saw the pen testing certification. I saw the MySQL certification. I went, man, this guy went deep. Man, you were really trying to rip apart the hood to figure out what's going on. And I remember in the early days, especially back when lab tech was super young, we're talking like 2011, 2012, that was the only way to use the software a lot of times was to go into the backend database because it wasn't the most easy thing to cooperate with. You were also telling me about this case study that you did. You mind kind of going in a little bit on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk about the story of Chris, and he's the chief security officer of a large MSP in my home state of Wisconsin. And to preserve security and anonymity, we don't identify any of our clients further than that. But Chris and his team were looking to secure ConnectWise Automate. They had used Kaseya in the past, and they had a firsthand encounter with an exploit that pushed out crypto miners to the client endpoints through the RMM itself. Ooh. And they were looking to reduce their attack surface, and you can obviously see their reasoning, right? And out of the box, Automate is easily enumerated by IoT scanners. And we talk about this a lot. And at our session for MSPGeekCon, we're going to dive into the problems with enumerability and all that. But if you think about attacks like that, you need to find your target. And that's what really makes this enumeration a problem. If a bad actor finds a flaw, well, it's a quick search away to find out how many of these things are out in the wild. And we've used, that showed an IoT data for research purposes before, and we've found over 7,000 Automate servers out in the wild compared to about 900 for Kaseya VSA. So if you think about how bad the Kaseya
Hold on. You found 7,000 Automate servers?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can't gloss over that. So there are 7,000 servers that you were able to find that possibly could have a vulnerability.
Yeah, how I would structure that, if a bad actor,
I might have said that
flaw,
a little bit. I might have said that a little ignorantly. I apologize, but you're the expert.
Yeah. So if someone did discover a 0-day exploit in ConnectWise Automate, for $50, you can get a Shodan API key and then download the list. And you'd have 7,000 targets, and you script up a little bot quick, and you take the bot, you feed it the list of IP addresses, and tell it, go run this exploit on these 7,000 devices. And that is basically how the global economy would grind to a halt.
Because that's a little crazy, man.
Yeah.
It's these things that, I think it's so important for us as professionals to know and realize. And it's no longer are the IT days of just make sure it works. I think those are long behind us, right? Because in IT for so long it was, am I productive? Can the shit work? Hell, I even am guilty of using that in my sales pitch at my MSP, right? Of saying, hey, Mr. Client, as long as your shit works and your employees are productive, then we're doing a great job. I think those days are long gone.
Yeah. It's definitely the IT landscape has changed so much, and everyone out here in the community, a community like this, we're full of people who are wise to that, but we still we don't talk about problems like this or how you'd solve them. And there are in the past, we've posted, data about, what we found showed in this, that, and the other. And you have the kind of old world thinkers out there on the internet who just kind of roll their eyes to the data, and they don't think about the potential there. Because, yeah, truthfully, enumeration is a hard nut to crack. And, even MITRE says so. You look at like the attack framework, and they say in there that, there's probably not much you can do to fix problems with reconnaissance. Well, with a web server, especially an RMM tool that arguably you use more with bots than you do with humans, there's plenty we can do to fix that specific problem. And lucky for us, that is the problem we're after, right? You're not going to hide your public website. You're not going to, there are certain things you want to be found. But I always like to call Automate my production honeypot. And that's definitely something you don't want to be found.
Dang. So how did this relate back to Chris?
So Chris, he had firsthand experience with how RMM security can go off the rails. And he was looking to protect his MSP. And Chris's Automate was like any other one. You can enumerate it. It wasn't fully hardened. And granular access controls were proving difficult to implement. They had made a couple passes at it, and it wasn't really doing what they wanted it to do. So we worked with Chris and his team, and we implemented a clustered reverse proxy for their Automate and their control servers. And they opted for some very aggressive controls, only allowing agent traffic except for a list of IP addresses. However, for client access, we assisted them in implementing URL-based access controls. So over the phone, their techs could read them off like a short mini URL, and that would jump over the IP restriction and get them to, the join assessment page, regardless of whatever IP address their clients were coming from.
So there's a little bit of an Easter egg hunt to kind of figure out some of the access URLs, and you can't just have a bot scrape all that stuff.
And that's something where, for that particular implementation, that's a URL parameter, and you can treat it kind of like a password, and we can rotate that as often as we like. You can change your short URL, but if a bot is scraping by IP address, and we'll dive into all of this in our actual session about protecting the tool stack against zero-day threats. All the bot's going to get is a 503 proxy error saying that it can't find what the bot's looking for. And so this is one of those things where it actually is a security control proper. Knowing that there is a URL parameter doesn't actually help you defeat the mechanism, just like knowing there's a door lock doesn't help you defeat it. You have to have the key. And it's the same idea.
You're really just adding that extra layer of now the door's a little bit harder to find. The door's a little bit buried in the back, and there's some brush over it, and there's trees over it, but you still need locks on the door, right?
Yeah. In our presentation, we talk about, and I don't want to give away too much, but we talk about the difference between armor and camouflage, and we actually have a fun little slide of an army tank out there, and militaries all over the world, they have army tanks, and that has both offensive and defensive security layers, but they paint it camouflage, and
they're not hot pink,
right? Correct. And so it's the same thing for the MSP technology. If you apply logic from across other disciplines, when you're securing something valuable in your house, the common recommendation is, don't keep it out in the open. If someone, can see that you have, some, very valuable antique through your window, they're just walking by the front of your house and they can see this valuable thing inside. Well, all of a sudden, that becomes a target. Why? Because it's visible. The tanks are painted camouflage. Why? Because you don't want them to be visible. This is, common sense, but we'll flesh out the details in our talk. But it doesn't catch on that way in the industry. We confuse security through obscurity, like changing a port number, with actual technical controls to prevent discovery.
So I got some dumb questions for you, because I've been, I mentioned my age, right? When I started using lab tech back in the day, now ConnectWise Automate. So I know a lot has changed, but dumb question number one, is this just on-prem, or have you found a way to do this for on-prem and cloud?
We can service both on-prem and cloud. You get a better total security result if you are on-prem. There are certain things that we can't completely close the surface area if you're in cloud. But with that said, we can still protect a lot of the application. The big thing right now on cloud for Automate, you can't put IP restrictions on the agent traffic, and the reasons for that are pretty obvious from a support perspective.
You don't have the firewall to ConnectWise,
right? Unfortunately, not.
You can't control that.
But for the rest of the application, for the logins, the APIs, everything else in those pools that you can IP restrict, we can route that through our proxy service, which has WAF for deep inbound inspection. And so with that, we can protect against an awful lot in the cloud. Not the same as you were on-prem, but still light years better than a plain basic exposed Automate or even plain Jane IP restrictions.
I gotcha. So I got another one, kind of a follow-up to that, which is obviously, we have a lot of people watching today, and not all of them may be using ConnectWise Automate, but you now may have kind of opened up some eyes to going, hey, Is this all RMMs? Is this just my RMM package? Is this something that we can go post about and say, hey, ConnectWise has a gaping hole? Like, give me a little bit more insight. Do you have any other insight on, like, is this something that's more widespread to other RMMs? Is Automation Theory looking to approach this with other applications?
Yeah. So this is going to be common across a lot of tools. So our bread and butter is ConnectWise Automate. We can definitely run other applications through our proxy. We have fully fleshed out proxy and WAF rules for control, and we're running both Bitwarden and Hoodoo through our proxy, and we're in the process of building WAF rules for those applications, and those are very popular out in the community. And as we see the community start to adopt some of these other applications, especially the self-hostable ones, where we can provide the most bang for the security buck, we'll continue to do R&D and get those applications properly secured and proxied.
Nice. And with that, right, some MSPs, like you mentioned, even the one that you worked for, right, that, there is a scaling aspect. And I know back in my day, Automate and scaling it were always a cat and mouse game of figuring out how do you scale it, how do you break it into separate servers, how do you start to load balance the different services. And right, I think even at my point at my MSP, we had like 4 or 5 Automate servers and started doing the nested doll action. Does the proxy service kind of scale with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So first things first, under the hood, it's HA proxy, and that's meant to scale crazily. Like GitHub uses HA proxy, and you've never gone to GitHub and have seen, sorry, we can't find that page. Or some other proxy errors, like HA proxy can scale to the moon. And likewise, we can use that technology for Automate proper. The other side of the automation theory shop is the quieter, less chaotic world of database maintenance and administration, performance tuning, and scaling. And for those split out Automate environments, we can use the proxy to go ahead and load balance, and we can actually get really creative. There was a solution we recently implemented where after a server migration, this client, they had a number of Mac agents that all of a sudden came back to life in their Automate. So it's basically overnight, you added 2,000 agents, and all of a sudden, their server was having some heartburn. And what we were able to do, we spun them up another web server, and then we used the proxy, and we were able to redirect all of the agent traffic to the second server, leaving the first server dedicated for the integrations and the staff to log in. So we offloaded the botnet completely, and as a result, they have an extremely snappy Automate server, and their stability problems went away when you offloaded 8,000 agents to their own dedicated box.
I'm almost thinking that's like a hidden value prop that's probably one of those sub bullet points that I could see some larger MSPs, adopting your platform just because of that. Right, that denial of service that you do on your own Automate server when you migrate it, or right, MSPs that do large M&A. Right, I go acquire a $3 to $5 million MSP that has 5,000-6,000 endpoints. Cutting those over isn't sometimes the easiest thing because I have to stage it, or you literally will denial of service your own Automate server. So I could see this being something extremely clever to scale.
Yeah. And we work with MSPs of all shapes and sizes, from the kind of 1 and 2 man consulting shops all the way up to 20,000 agent plus Automate stacks. So we can, we've seen an interesting cross section of the industry in both how you secure it and how you scale it. And we can build a custom solution to fit for whatever an MSP has out there.
I love it, man. I love it. So, hey, we're almost out of time. So, tell us a little bit about what your session's going to be.
Yeah. So our session is going to be defending the MSP tool stack in a 0-day world. And we're going to be talking about attacks against MSP tools, specifically, the on-prem variety, and, there are thousands of MSPs running them out there, and how to build out or how the attacks work, how these bad actors are finding their targets, and how the different stages of an attack go. So they've found your target. How are they going ahead and pairing up these attacks? How is that being delivered? We're going to walk through the cybersecurity kill chain as it relates to MSP hunting and MSP attacks. And then we're going to talk about how to build zero-day resistant architecture. Well, there is, obviously we have a solution for that. There's more to overall security and overall architecture than just, slapping down a product. Everybody knows that. So we're going to walk through what people need as far as creating that for themselves. We actually have, we'll have a hard copy cheat sheet handout, and by the time you're done with that session, you'll have a little blueprint that you can go back to your MSP and start to sketch out on the whiteboard. Hey, how are we going to build this?
Awesome. That sounds cool, man. I know that's tactical, hands-on, and we always love that stuff. And hey, I wanted to say I appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity, and looking forward to seeing you and everybody else at the conference.
Oh, dude, yeah, definitely. I think at this point, right, I'll let you buy me a beer. All right, guys. And that's a wrap for today's Vendor Spotlight. Thank you, Jeremy from Automation Theory. I hope you all enjoyed learning more about his journey and the amazing solution his company has to offer. As always, we want to thank the MSP Geek community for joining us and being part of this conversation. Your input and feedback are invaluable to the growth and success of our industry. If you have any additional questions or you want to learn more about Automation Theory, be sure to check out their website and connect with Jeremy and his team to go ahead and pick his brain. Go check out his session at MSPGeekCon. I'm sure it's going to be really educational and something that's going to add a little extra tools to your own toolbox to really help push this industry further. And thanks, guys, for tuning in. Until next time, keep geeking out.
This has been a broadcast of the MSP Media Network.